Hi, this is Mark Blumberg, and I'm going to give you an in-depth understanding of the Charity Data website that our law firm Blumbergs Professional Corporation has created originally in 2016, and we've been adding data to it ever since, and also adding functionality to it. So we're going to talk a little bit about this website, and hopefully you'll find it to be helpful. Essentially, at this website, you'll find up to 19 years information on each Canadian registered charity, as the information is provided to us by the Charities Directorate of CRA. In fact, anyone from the public can ask CRA for public data that's available. Now, just some of the basic functionality: if you want to pick a particular charity and you want to look them up, you can search them here. You can also search not just by the name, but the BN number. I don't know, most of the time people don't use BN numbers, but sometimes you have the BN number and the name is not actually the name CRA has, so it can be helpful. But if you just pick an organization, say Save the Children, and you do a search on them, then here it comes up and you can see this is revenue and total expenditures. You can see they're a charitable organization, not a public foundation or private foundation. You can see they're involved with relief of poverty, and the category is organizations relieving poverty other, and we'll talk more about categories later. Their business number, their website if it's provided by the charity, and the mailing address. Then you can see ongoing activities, what they're involved with, and also sometimes they'll list new programs. On the middle of the page, you have assets, liabilities, revenue, expenses, staff, fundraising, programs, etc. This basically sets out, so you just jump from tab to tab. So if you want to see, and you can see, for example, here assets, and you can slide this along, and you can see from 2003 until the last filing. In this case was 2021. Liabilities are listed, revenue, which goes into, for example, how much was receipted, how much was received from different levels of government. In this case, 35 million from the federal government. And then it gives the total revenue at the bottom. And who's on the board is at the bottom of every one of the pages. Expenses. So the expenses are divided up into two areas. One is advertising and promotion, like how do they actually spend the money, and what type of thing are they spending it on? Office supplies, occupancy costs, things like that. Okay. Then if you jump down here, it's divided by different groups. So was it spent on charitable activities, management administration, fundraising, political, which is no longer tracked, so it's not going to have any recent numbers in there, other expenditures, or was it gifts to qualified donees? And then what is the total expenditure? So you see here, the total expenditure over here should be the same as the total expenditure up here. It's just looking at those expenditures in a different light. And, so just so that you're aware that that's the case. Then in terms of staff, it talks about how much was used for compensation, how much of that was part-time, consulting fees, who were the highest paid, 10 staff people, not who I should say, but how many are there in different brackets, so earning different amounts here and things like that. Fundraising, it provides information on the types of fundraising the organization did. As well, it goes into did they issue receipts for different types of gifting kind donations, and if they did, what was the value of that those gifting kinds? Okay. Then also, this is something that we have that I think is quite helpful for many people. Charities, every charity, T3010, if you make a gift to another charity, you need to list it. So now I've looked at other essentially organizations that have said that they made a donation to this particular charity. And what this does is it lists those groups who made a donation to this particular charity so that you can see, it doesn't tell you who all their donors are. It just tells you other registered charities that gave funds to this particular organization. And so that here is listed as well. Not necessarily all of them. It's just looking at the last 10 years and the top 200. Okay. And so that is under fundraising. Then programs, did the charity give gifts to others? Yes, no. Did the charity carry out foreign activities, how much do they spend on foreign activities, which groups did they work with, and how much did they give on foreign activities. So there's a lot of information in here. Also, did any of the projects that we're involved with involve global affairs funding? So, then it has that listed there. Political activities, if money was spent on political activities, it's listed here, but since RA is not really asking the question, so actually there won't be any updated information on that. So essentially, this is the information that is there for a particular single charity. Now, there's also other features that are quite exciting when it comes to the Charity Data website. One is a director search. So you can basically type in the name of a director here, and you can, so if we pick, just take a name like John, then you see that there's a lot of names. And then if you go Smith, there will probably be as well a lot of names. Now, if you're looking for a John Smith that is in Calgary, then, it makes it a little bit simpler. Okay, so anyway, that's a good feature. Over 500,000 directors of Canadian registered charities. It's good to know that information. Then there's the advanced charity search, which has a couple elements to it. One is this here, sort results by, where you can use many different ways to search charities. So I'll just give an example. If we want to look at, which charities received the most funds from other charities as an example, okay? So then it's basically listed here. If we want to look at which charities have the most land and buildings and, in terms of value, then, it's like really Alberta Health Services, not surprising. Second is University of Toronto, okay? If we want to look for who got the most federal government money, then, it lists them that way. Okay, so you can pick groups this way, but you can also, on the left-hand side, you can do it by designation. So if you want to look at, total revenue from the federal government for private foundations or groups listed as private foundations, then also there are categories here. Okay, so I'm just going to put this back to relevance. So it just has all of the charities, not just some. And then categories, there's 252 different categories that CRA divides the charity sector up into. Now, keep in mind, these are not, it's not such a great system for categorization because, first of all, some charities are doing 15 things, but you only get one category. Okay, but it is what it is. With some organizations, it's actually quite accurate. But with other areas, it's not particularly good. But like, so for example, if you did educational camps, it'll show, some here that are set up. Don't even know, that's a small category, I guess. But let's just take Protestant as an example. So we've got 903 listed as Protestant. If you go to, Salvation Army temples, then you'll see there's 294 and it divides it that way. The other thing is, and you can do multiple things. So you can look at, let's look at revenue between 500 and 1.5 million of the Salvation Army temples. And also we want to look at assets, who has assets, say, over $1 million. Okay. We can also look at who has expenses over, a certain amount and things like that. We can look at, we want them only to have 2 to 5 employees, which is probably going to knock out all of them, but no, some of them 2 to 5 employees. Okay, and you can divide it by provinces, so it'll only be the ones that are in that province as well, or city, or postal code, or whatever. So just keep in mind that you have tremendous flexibility to play around with this stuff here and there. Just be patient. It can take a few seconds sometimes for the thing to sort and that. Okay, so just wanted you to be aware of that. I also wanted to point out that essentially we have this article, which is CRA's Charities Listing versus Blumbergs Charity Data 2023, and you can read it. But what I want to highlight particularly is that the CRA Charities Listing and Charity Data are not the same thing. There's a lot of reasons you would be using the Charities Listing of CRA, and there's some reasons why you might want to use CharityData.ca. So I'll just give you an example. If you want to know whether a registered charity is still a registered charity, you need to use CRA's Charities Listing. our information is often at least a year, if not a year and a half, out of date. Now, the CRA's listing of charities is up to date, but the information on many charities is sometimes going to be a year and a half out of date as well. So just keep that in mind. But if you want to know if an organization is currently a registered charity, it doesn't help to look at charity data. If you want to, for example, search by charity status, registered, revoked, audit, etc., only you can do that on the CRA website. So Charity Data just has what were the current organizations, say in 2020 or 2021, whatever, that were registered. But if you want to find a revoked charity, maybe they didn't file their stuff, you can do that on the CRA website. You cannot do that on Charity Data. They have pie charts, we have revenue expenditure charts, whatever. In some of the things like searching for a BN, you can do it in both places. Okay. If you want to look for the effective date of the status, that would be something to find on CRA's website. If you want to find out have they been penalized or are they suspended, things like that. So let's say, for example, you're a charity and you want to give $1 million gift to another charity. You want to check the CRA website to check and see, first of all, are they a registered charity? Secondly, have they been suspended? Because if they've been suspended, you shouldn't make a gift to them. Okay. So that's only on the CRA website, not on ours. On our website, CharityData.ca, you can search, and on CRA's one about, depending on if it's a public foundation, private foundation, or charitable organization. Okay. Searching by things like city, province, postal code, you can do all this on both websites. Where it gets quite interesting is when you start going down here and saying, okay, can we search CRA's website by, for example, revenue? Total revenue, or including certain bands and things, and the answer is no, you can't, whereas you can on Charity Data. So all of these things, sorting by total assets, liabilities, revenue, total expenditures, how much do they have in cash, bank accounts, things like that. On Charity Data, you can search all of that stuff, but you can't do that on CRA's website. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that you can do on Charity Data that you cannot do on the CRA website, and that's just so that you're aware of that. Another thing I just wanted to point out is that if you decide, hey, I'm interested in donating to a charity, you can go to Canada Helps. This is just provided as a link here, but at the bottom of every page we have, if you're interested in donating to this charity, visit Canada Helps. We're not saying it's a good charity, you should donate to it, but just in case you did want to donate to it, it's easier, instead of you going to Canada Helps website trying to find the charity there, we just list it there so you can see. In some cases, a group may not even be on the Canada Helps website, maybe, and therefore it won't work. The other thing which is quite helpful is there's a link here to actually CRA's database. So if you go here, you can actually just jump right here. So for example, you see here it says 2022 is the information, the latest information on this particular organization. Okay, but if you look here, we only have 2021. Now maybe this will be updated shortly, let's hope. But the point is, always the most up-to-date information is going to be on the CRA's charity listing, and we make it easy for you to jump and go and see that sort of stuff. By the way, with some organizations, about 1,000 of them, we have financial statements that we've obtained, and then sometimes there'll be a little thing down here saying that, oh, here's a copy of their financial statement. You can see it, but it's only with a small number of organizations, unfortunately. Okay, so just wanted to point out some of the functionality of the site. And basically, this portal is free, and the aim of having it is to increase transparency in the Canadian charity sector. Okay, so Canadian charities have revenue over $300 billion a year, and also they have millions of volunteers who are basically donating their time to the charity, which is very valuable for charities. So it's important that there is some information. And what you'll find is if you go to, for example, here, the CRA's charity listing. So if I go here and I want to look up an organization on here, it's, first of all, just is based on the name, not based on activities. So consequently, on Charity Data, if you typed in, something like, helping children or something, there'd be a lot more things. It would only on the CRA website. If the organization is called Helping Children, it'll show up, but otherwise it doesn't show up. But you see here, the CRA's website, it has a details page up here that you can jump to, which gives some information. And it has a highlights page, you could say here. This is like the highlights page. And then it has full view where you can see more detailed information on the group. So, for example, detailed financial statements, okay? But this is the problem that many people would, to be frank, much rather look at a list where it shows it multi-year. It's a lot easier to see the information than it is to have to basically go through. So if I'm looking for revenue, here I can look across multiple years, whereas on the CRA website, you've got 1 year you can look at. And if you want to look at multiple years, it means you have to open up and find multiple T3010 filings. And so for those who are trying to understand, like, did they get more money this year than last year? It's way easier to look and see on the page here that we have. Okay, so just something that the CRA database has a lot of good to it. It's just that there are times where it's easier to see things on the Charity Data website. Okay, and then now another thing I just want to highlight is that all of this information comes from the CRA. They send us information monthly, basically. It's public, only the public information that is on the T3010 forms. None of this information is stuff that we change or edit, or if you notice there's a mistake, it doesn't help to tell us. There are lots of mistakes on this website. It's just often charities are making mistakes. Sometimes CRA makes mistakes when it inputs the information. Now, it's the responsibility of a registered charity to provide accurate and complete information to CRA on a timely basis. And it's CRA's responsibility to input that information. And many charities, unfortunately, do not provide fulsome information or accurate information. And so then that information is going to appear on this website because that's what the charity provided, okay? And if you look at our disclaimer and the terms that we have on the website, we emphasize this. It's important to look at those documents so that you're aware of what you're getting. We haven't vetted any charities. We aren't saying that any of them are anything other than in the past, they were a registered charity and we've gotten this data from CRA. That's about it. That's what we're really saying. Some of these charities are great charities, some are not great charities. It's a real mixed bag, if you will, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is that the information that you're getting here is just what's on the T3010. So if CRA has been asking less information on T3010, so now you're getting less information. If CRA asks more information, as the US IRS does, or the Charity Commission of England and Wales, then you would have much more information. So just keep that in mind as well. And you should encourage CRA to ask more questions, then there'll be greater understanding of charities, because right now, most charities are filling in 2-3 pages of a T3010 once a year. It's not exactly the most fulsome data, if you will, on such an important sector, which is over $300 billion in size. Another thing to keep in mind is if you happen to notice that something is wrong, then, say your charity filed something that was incorrect, then you can basically put in an amendment request to CRA. Doesn't help to tell us about it. When CRA one day sends us revised information, at some point we'll hopefully be able to update the information so that it's more accurate. Then the other thing is there are types of changes that some charities may make, like changing your address and all this sort of stuff. Some things you just need to advise CRA of. Some things you need to get CRA's permission before you actually do it. So we're just pointing that out because eventually, for example, if you change your address, then eventually when we get the next full set of CRA data, that information will be brought up on this particular website, okay? Some other, I guess, things that I would just point out, because we have mentioned that for the most up-to-date information, you really should be looking at CRA's data. The other thing is that, obviously you go, you go to the charity's own website, it'll give you some other information, or if you have questions, you can ask the charity directly. And the other last point I guess I wanted to just make was that This CharityData.ca website is part of the Sean Blumberg Transparency Project that Blumbergs Professional Corporation has established. It's in memory of my youngest brother, Sean Blumberg, who was a wonderful brother, and he helped me a lot with, this is a long time ago, basically taking data from CRA that was of very limited value because sometimes it was just so poorly put together. For example, what charities were operating outside of Canada and in which countries. And of course, there's charities would put down the name of a country, but in many cases, there were like 15 different variations of, is it the United States of America, USA, all this. So we would manually basically go through the thing, clean it up, and then try to put out stuff. And my brother, Sean, would help me with these projects. And so this project is named after Sean. And that's it. I hope that you get a lot of use out of CharityData.ca. The only thing we ask people really to do is, obviously make sure you understand what this is, read the about section, the terms, the FAQs, things like that, but also let other people know about it. If you use this website and you find it helpful, let others know about it, because it's basically just our law firm doing it. We get no government money to make it happen. And right now we are having a large number of people using it because there is a lot of interest in the charity sector. So thank you for using this tool. Hopefully you'll find it helpful. And if ever there are legal issues that one needs and you need legal advice relating to nonprofits and charities, you can always contact us. Yes, and hopefully this tool will keep on improving and with additional information be useful for you. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.